Glenda Boozer. Well, and this is what you do when you only have ebooks. Max wasn't any kind of traditional coon dog. This is not exactly a coon dog. I'm not even sure what kind of dog he was. Probably husky and chow and whatever, what with his blue eyes and curly tail. But whatever he was, he definitely had a grudge against raccoons. He chased possums, rabbits, squirrels, guineas, cats, and I don't know what else. But coons really seemed to get him excited. He would always bark his head off at any coon, anytime. He would demand to go outside if he knew there was one out in the yard. When I'd go visiting at someone's house where he had to walk on a leash to do his business, if he saw a coon, he'd drag me across the neighborhood or yank the leash right out of my hand, usually to chase them away from the dumpster and over the fence. We found 5 coons in the dumpster one morning. If the sanitation company could hire those greedy, nosy little critters, they'd be lining up around the block. I never liked raccoons myself, at least not after my friend Doug's mother, Elsa, started raising the damn things as house pets. Only one at a time, thank goodness. And when each one grew up as much as Elsa thought they needed to, she'd let it go and start looking for another one. Raccoons make terrible pets. They tore up the house, especially the kitchen, ransacking the cabinets looking for marshmallows and other goodies. They bit and scratched people on a regular basis, but Elsa didn't seem to care as the rest of the family got used to wearing Band-Aids most of the time. One of the young coons learned to open doorknobs and jumped people in their beds. I particularly remember the morning after Doug's brother had been to a bachelor party. You should have heard the screaming. Raccoons and hangovers definitely do not mix. One day, Doug found that one of those cute little coons had unscrewed the lid from the gallon jar he'd made into a terrarium and was pulling the plants out and daintily eating the roots. He and his mom had a rather hot discussion after that, which he didn't win, but later on he caught the little beast washing its paws in the toilet. He really couldn't resist giving it a little shove and a little flush, could he? No harm done, but it did surprise the little booger. Maybe Max knew that I wasn't fooled by those cute little bandit faces, but boy, he surely wasn't. One particular time, we were visiting my gentleman friend, and we left a bag of dog food on his back porch. Really, it's a glassed-in patio, I guess, all windows and no walls. Only the door didn't always latch too well. Late one night, the dog started going absolutely nuts, especially Max. He kept barking and throwing himself up against the door to the porch. We looked through the glass, and there were 2 raccoons in there helping themselves to that dog food. No wonder Max objected to that. I let Max out, but not Ginger. She didn't volunteer either. I thought the coons would run, but only one of them headed out the loose door. The other one tore into my dog, biting his leg, and kicking in his belly like a cat in a fight. Max was doing a bit of biting on his own, but I ended up having to go out with a broom and beat that raccoon off the poor old dog. Amazingly, I didn't see any blood. I think that thick fur of his gave Max a bit of protection. But I did keep an eye on him for a while. Any critter's bite, or even a deep scratch, can cause a nasty infection. Over the next few weeks, I didn't see any swelling or redness, just a dark purple stain across that poor old belly. It didn't go away. It got bigger. Come on, bruises don't do that. The vet said it was a skin infection, so I guess those claws really can be bad. I had to spray Max with some kind of stuff the vet gave me. He didn't like it much. It helped some, but that purple never completely went away. Not even on the day he died. It was a cold night, but Max started with the barking and carrying on, so I let him out. Off he ran, raising a racket, and I went back to what I'd been doing. A little later, I went to the door and called him, but he didn't come. An hour later, he didn't come. Next morning, he didn't come. I was really getting worried. Then my brother sent me a text message saying that his housekeeper had seen Max in the driveway, and he wasn't moving. I put on a coat, hat, and gloves, stumbled along the long driveway, and found him stiff as a board with his legs sticking out, eyes wide open. Not a mark on him other than that purple stain on his belly. 11 years is not so bad for a big dog, but there's never enough time for someone you love. If I was too stiff to get out of bed in the morning, Max let me brace myself on his strong shoulders for a little more leverage. He helped me up when I fell down in the driveway using the same method, immediately sitting down next to me so I could easily push myself up again. He never hurt anyone on purpose, though he got carried away once, rough had housing with his sidekick dog, Ginger, broke the skin. He cried when he saw the blood. He went out and got his biggest rawhide bone and set it down in front of her to show how sorry he was. He did manage to do plenty of intimidating when I needed him to, like the last time someone tried to put pressure on me to do something I didn't want to do. After Max growled at him a few times, he found somewhere else to be. Years later, when he forgot that he'd met me before and tried to flirt, I said, "My dog still doesn't like you." And I never heard another word from the guy. Of course, there was always the time that thing almost ate George. That's another story, of course. He used to bring me things, from the neighbor kid's baseball, which I put back on the porch, to a peach that fell from the tree in the backyard. Even things like chicken legs and pork chops that the lady next door used to give him. I always gave those back to him. It was the thought that counted after all. One time he brought me a jar full of peanut butter, but I figured that was because he wanted me to open it and give him some. Not having opposable thumbs could be a pain, and though he could have bitten right into it with no trouble, I was glad that he didn't. I opened it up and spooned out a taste for him and then put the jar on the top shelf. No use putting temptation in the poor fellow's way. People used to say I should train him to be a service dog, but somebody said the first thing I should teach him was to open the refrigerator door. I figured the second thing I'd have to teach him was not to open the refrigerator door. But I never got started. He was just fine the way he was. Be that as it may, there I was at the end of 11 years on a freezing, damp morning with a 65-pound dead dog on my hands. I called my sister, and after she let me cry for a bit, she said she'd get him buried for me. While I waited for her to come over in the truck, I tried to put Max in a big old garbage bin. If you've never done such a thing before, you just can't imagine how hard it is to wrestle a bored, stiff dog, too heavy to lift, into a garbage bag. It's worse than trying to dress a kid who doesn't want to put a shirt on. I had to find it a bit funny, sad as it was to be out there like that. When my sister showed up, I still hadn't done any sort of decent job, but between the two of us, we got him hauled up into the truck. I didn't come. Never have gone out there to his grave. Guess I ought to try. Anyway, that was the last I saw of Max. Went back into the house and just sat there for a bit, not knowing what to do next. Well, back to the usual. I turned to the computer to check messages and see what else needed to be done that day. And there was a document on it. It was a letter, and I sure hadn't read it. It said, "Hey, you've been good to me, and I have enjoyed being here for all these years, but it's about time I headed back to my own world. Being a dog in a people world can be fun, but there are other shapes for me and other jobs for me to do. Besides, there's the thing about the hands. Ever tried typing a letter with a pencil in your teeth?" I didn't. No typing in the dog form, that's my rule. I made it through the incident of that fool from Procyon you buried in the backyard, since it was self-defense in the end. He had no business trying to eat my cat, but those guys can get crazy when they get off their home planet and start fooling around. Good thing they're never allowed to wander around the cities, just out here where there's plenty of woods and brush for them to hide in. No manners and not a lick of sense when it comes to keeping a low profile. Sorry it scared you. That bunch is not going to be allowed on your planet anymore, so don't worry about it. Take care of my new kitten for me and look after Ginger. She's not the brightest pup in the litter, but she has a good heart and she'll keep you company. Keep an eye out for another agent. They'll send one sooner or later, but I'm not sure how soon or what shape you'll see. I'm going out tonight to settle things with those damn coons before I go. They plan to take over when you folks are done messing up the world, but it is not their turn yet. Humans get a chance to prove themselves for a bit longer before we give up on y'all, and good luck to the whole bunch of you. Try to behave yourselves, please. I've gotten fond of some of you. Best wishes, Max. I have got to wonder, if Max wrote that letter and he didn't do any typing in dog shape, what ship was he in when he was in here typing a silly letter while I was out there trying to put a dog corpse into a garbage bag? Did the coons do something to him, or did he just quit being a dog when he decided to go home, wherever that was? Also wondered what I was going to do with a silly little psychic dog and a cat who thought he was a dog too, and no Max to keep an eye on. I'm going to have my hands full, especially if there's really an agent coming to replace Max over here. Nobody could replace him in our little household, of course, but it seems he had another job besides just looking after us. Local alien beat cop? Something like that, I guess. Out in the country, especially where there's lots of woods, visitors from somewhere else can show up, look around, and leave without anybody noticing. The morning after we buried Max, I let Ginger out and saw a deer in the driveway of all things. Ginger ran after the deer, a young one with buds for horns, and then the deer turned around and ran after Ginger, round and round my car, with Ginger wagging her tail the whole time. Took a couple pictures of the two of them, and then when I tried to get closer to the deer, he came right up and started licking my hand. For a few moments, I simply stood there amazed, getting in a good picture or two while this beautiful creature tried to wash my hands for me. Then the darn thing reared up and put its front hooves on my shoulders and tried to kiss my face. After a bit of thinking what a miracle that was, it occurred to me that it was also a nuisance. He tried to follow me into the house, but I doubt he was house trained. My uncle tells me from experience that you can't house train a calf. Don't ask. And I don't think a deer is a whole lot different. There's a deer farm down the road, so when I went into town, I stopped and called the number on their sign and left a message. I never saw it again, but around here you never know. My brother's cat Matilda did come in the house, demanded to be petted, and ate some cat food, though she had never wanted to come in when Max was there. And she's never come inside since. Seems like the neighbors made their visits in the house of loss or something of the sort. So far, there's nobody like Max moving in here, and I haven't seen any other crazy smart animals around the place, but you never know.
Very cool. All right.